And here is the cannon in its full design. And you can actually see the computer here, or the lookup table with the panel. I call it the computer, but Red doesn't like to call it the computer. And then here is the programming system. Different TNT mounts are used for the difference from the different two sides, the red and the green side. And then there is the binary coding for the east, west, or north, or south. And then you place observers where you want to have obviously the program to be programmed. And then you can just use the location on a panel. And in this particular cannon, we have programmed these 7 locations that you can just select using the buttons. And then you click the button over here to program the cannons. And then you just wait for the lamp to turn off. And you can even hear a little bell if you have sound. And then you can just stand in the cannon and just shoot the pearl. And what happens is that these two towers over here send the signal for the different directions. This observer and slime is sending the program for the cannon on the green cannon, and the red cannon has its own wire over here. And for the different directions of chunk loading, we can actually see it over here. You can actually program the different wires that you can actually take by using different amount of items that go into these chests, and using different signal strengths that these comparators then can take, unlocks either the top. You can see it here. If it's got a signal strength of 1 and it doesn't have a signal strength in this 0 over here, then this comparator turns off, or it turns on, and then this torch turns off, and it allows this particular line to be open. And you can actually see it here. This particular line is now open, and that means that if you with the program that we have, when you activate the cannon, this particular line activates, and it's 3 white tileable over here. You can see, and then the signal the comparators don't need to be instant. It actually works out perfectly. Just regular comparators, just send them all around this cannon over here. And then this wire, this wire over here is basically the signaling device that activates the chunk loading system. Many details. I guess all the questions can go in the description if you are more interested about this cannon. One other thing to keep in mind, Reg had a really smart idea about how to make these long wires. We can actually go to the world, to the spawn, where we can actually see these wires being made automatically. We had to build all those instant wires all the way around the world. Obviously, that is a lot of instant wire, and I think, Rich, you had a really smart idea about how to build them automatically.
We basically copy-paste the schematics over here. These are all directions where the wire can go. For the chunk loading, we use this pattern, and then you can activate the blocks. You can teleport the two. It's a basic direction. Also, a quick setup this wires.
Takes a role of a car that basically you drive it towards your destination, and then you want to turn right here, and you turn right again. You can actually see that the wire is automatically building, and then you can just drive it off to any location. Let me just drive it a little bit further. So it actually created this wire really fast across all the space that you need, and then you can actually activate these blocks as well, and it generates this pattern where you can basically chunk load for the pearl. Rich, you want to activate the signal, and it actually shows that it removes all the command blocks as well.
Don't work.
There we go. By activating the wire, it just deletes all the command blocks, and all that remains is the wire. This is a little bit complicated to program the cannon, but if you want to build this cannon in your survival, obviously you want to know how to program it. This is going to be a short demonstration. I might have to do a proper explanation video, but this is going to probably do for the most general case, as it's a very complicated cannon, and people will probably contact us and ask how exactly to program it generally and where to build it. So you program it by placing observers in these rows, and each row here and each each layer here corresponds to the columns and the rows on the panel. So this row over here corresponds to the top fourth column. So that's basically the missing button over here. That's what this row over here corresponds. So if you activate that button or that lamp that lights up this particular row, and then you can direct the pearl towards the main cardinal directions. Let's say you want to face it towards north, then you program 1, 1. That's basically placing two observers. Observers are ones. And then if you want to, let's say, shoot the pearl straight north, then you need to have an equal amount of TNT on both sides. If you have an equal amount of green and the red TNT, then it will go straight. If you have a disproportionate amount of green TNT than a red TNT, then it will angle towards the left or the right, depending on the configuration that is at the top. We'll have to fly up there and check it out. But if you want to, for example, put 16 TNT on the left side and 16 TNT on the right side, then you will pretty much go straight north. I would strongly suggest, this is a strong suggestion, you could use less TNT, but it's generally better to always use the maximum number of TNT. Even though it's laggier, it is pretty much better for the use case that you're going to use less chunk loading and less amount of work to build the chunk loading system. And you also have an added benefit if you want to go into different angles. It gives you higher granularity of control. So use as much TNT as possible. That's a strong suggestion. It's obviously up to you if you want to use less, but it generally means that you have to chunk load even more. You have to build your pearl stations a little bit more often. So that's just the gist of how to set up your cannon. You program the direction here in these 2 bits, and then you program the amount of TNT that is used on the green and the red cannons. Or the red and the green compressors. And then if you fly up here, you can easily see that the green cannon, green compressor shoots the TNT into this corner over here. And the red obviously shoots the compressed TNT in this corner. And then based on one of these activated lines, you can see that the red activates this side and the green activates the other side. Only one of these will be activated. Only the west, south, or the north and the east will only activated by the different bits that you just saw down there. We just looked at them. And if you want to, for example, go straight north, then obviously only this fence gate needs to open and you shoot towards the north. But if you want to know exactly how you twist the TNT, let's say you want to go a little bit towards the right or the left, then you need to look up here. The TNT will land in this corner and be pushed into this spot over here. So the red TNT is basically responsible for the stuff or the TNT that is landing on this spot. And the green TNT will land here. And given that the other directions have been turned off, only the north pushing and north fence will be pushing the TNT. You will have TNT sitting in this corner. And if you have maximum number of TNT from the green and a little bit less TNT from the red, it means that the TNT will actually lack a little bit on the right side, and obviously the TNT will shoot the pearl straight in that direction. So using less red TNT and more red TNT will angle it towards the right, and vice versa. Using more red and less green will angle it towards the left. So it's a little bit complicated. I haven't made a manual for it yet. This is just a short explanation how the cannon works. But if you want to program the cannon, that's how you do it. You just come up here and just look at how the different cannons align the TNT differently, and then you just go from there to figure out how many TNT you need to reduce from one of the sides. Generally speaking, you want to maximize the amount of TNT always, and then we said that the red cannon will be a little bit less. Keep in mind there is only 30 modules in the entire cannon, and if you add these numbers together, 16 plus 8 plus 4 and so on, that's a little bit more than 30. So this is the amount, this is the maximum amount you can actually get. Let's just do maths here. No. This is the maximum amount. There is another bit here that isn't used. Okay, I'm just going to repair this because I'm not supposed to mess it up. And if you have problems with rails, you can always use carpet mod. But generally speaking, you don't need to add the last bit. There is no module on the last bit. So if you want to have the maximum power on the red, you need to reduce. You can't just reduce the last TNT because there is only 30 modules. So this is the same thing as this. There is no difference between this. So you need to reduce this from the 2 TNT and add 1. So this becomes 29 modules, and this side becomes 30 modules. So now we have 30 modules activated on the green side and 29 modules activated on the red side. So if you want to shoot the pearl, it angles slightly towards the right, and it's supposed to be 360 degrees in all different angles. But obviously there is some angles that in some areas that some areas of the or the pie chart that have a little bit more TNT angles that you can shoot the pearl at. So somewhere in the 45-degree area, you have less freedom of choice. So it's not a very smooth angle precision that you can aim the pearl at. So let's just program this, and then we can just look at the event logger from the carpet mod that can actually help figure out where the pearl is supposed to go. Using this sign over here, you can just get the pearl. You just stay in this in a boot. Obviously, we have to also program the cannon. Let's just see if it's actually working. We have the program set, and then we just click the button over here, and we just wait. The system programs. There we go. We just heard a bell sound, and then we just get into the machine. Now in here, for another carpet tool that is really useful to actually use is the logger. Log projectiles, and then use full readings. This will give you an overview of where the pearl will travel. Just aim straight up. Now you can see that the chat is now being spammed by the pearl's location and momentum and everything. And in a moment, it will shoot. There we go. This gives all the information about the pearl. It's shooting the pearl, and this exact information is that the 189th tick, the pearl just got extremely accelerated towards some random direction towards north. And this means that it's traveling minus towards the x-axis. The z-axis. It's got a massive z momentum, and it's got a small x momentum, so it's traveling slightly in that direction, not straight north. It's traveling slightly angled towards the right, as we just programmed. And then this is the y height. This is basically how it's accelerating upwards. And this is the location it was at before it is at right now. So this is where it was at before, and this is this next game tick. This is where it's located at now that it actually traveled. Now you can actually go there, just traveling there, or you can just click this button over here, and it will teleport you to the exact spot where the pearl is. I will teleport there. Now for a moment, the pearl was here where we are at, but because it's got a massive momentum, it just shut off again and just got stuck in the lazy chunks again. And you can see that it just went from the location that we are at right now into the next location. So it's traveled something like 900 blocks, something in that 700 blocks, something in that direction. And then it's lost a little bit of the speed. You can see that as well, and it's still gaining altitude. And this is the y height and and then x and z positions. But generally, this is the location that pearl is now at. Now you can actually see that the cross location over there, that's the location if the pearl was to travel straight north. This is the location it's now at when it's traveling slightly towards the right. Now this chunk needs to be chunk loaded. This location over here needs to be chunk loaded by the chunk loading system. And I will go through quickly how the chunk loading grid can be used and how to program the chunk loading as well. So you can actually see that there is the comparator system over here, and then you have the instant wire over here, and these two somehow have to connect because this instant wire is the activating instant wire that activates all of the chunk loading, and then you use this lock mechanism over here to exclude all the chunk loading that you don't want. Obviously, you don't want to chunk load the whole world at the same time because we have at least 5 chunk loading grids attached to the system over here, and you don't want to activate, you only want to activate the only ones that you need. And then what you do is just basically lock the comparator that you don't need by using one of these AND gates. And the AND gates use a chest. You put different amount of items in the chest, and what you want to try to achieve is a setting where if you open F3 screen, you can see that there is the power level of 1 here and power level of 0. This configuration is okay. This lets the power through, and that's what you want. And in this configuration, you can see that the power level is 3 and 2. That's too much. So this system is locked. And if you want to build one of these, you basically need to, let's just assume that this is the chunk loading that you're going to use. You just basically built your entire wire and everything. You go here, you look inside of this chest, you put a little bit more items in here, have the power level gone down. Okay, now it went down too far. Now it's 0, 0. That's not going to help. That's still going to power this, the lock mechanism. So you need to take out a little bit of items, and that's perfect. So 1, 0. There is power of 1 and 0 that lets the power through. That unlocks this power. That means that now this mechanism over here, this setup over here, is configured with the panel button that is located over here. So this button over here is now locked in with the comparator signal and unlocks this wire when that button is selected. So the items in here corresponds to the signal strengths to the button specified over there on the panel. And then when you activate the chunk loading system with a Perl, it activates this wire, and then the wire just chunk loads for the Perl just in that moment. So you don't need to send the signals through all the other wires. And this is how you program the cannon. And if you want to go in a little bit more depth on how to program the cannon, I might be able to do a tutorial. And if you actually want to build this in your world, this cannon, I would strongly suggest to actually build it in the exact same location. There is reasons that you want to avoid building this cannon in an incorrect location. One of them being that if you build the compressors in chunk borders that are really bad, like the one that we're standing on right now, this one over here, there's a chunk border that is to power of power of 2. Any chunk border of power of 2, that basically means 16, 32, 64, 128, and so on and so on. These lines, these chunk borders, cause entities to misform their shapes. And it causes this femto bug that basically when you squeeze the TNT with a piston or push the TNT with a piston, it changes its shape. And when it changes its shape, it actually can cause the cannon to blow up over here. So it's very, very dangerous. You should never build your cannon system on these power of 2 lines. And let's just see, there is another line over here. Yep, right here. You can actually see that under no circumstance is that chunk border anywhere near any TNT being pushed by a piston. So if you want to build this cannon, build it exactly in this spot, or if you know exactly what you're doing, build it in a spot that isn't crossing chunk borders of power lines of power 2 lines, basically. This number, the X and the Z, and this applies for both negative and positive. A quick note about how to build these instant wires as well. If you want to build it, let's say you want to go, we just had an example over there at the beginning where we wanted to go north. Then you come over to this location where we have the prepped command blocks. There is a setup that ornariece helped build, the one over here. This one is a little bit more manual. You throw an item and it builds the instant wire. Personally, I like this one where you actually place down command blocks and you can't make a mistake when you place your initial command block. So it's really important that you place your initial command block correctly. You take the middle command block over here, and you can see that it's on the second line, on the chunk border 1, 2, and it's facing north. So let's just go to an open area, and you place the command block in the exact same spot. You can't misplace it. This first command block has to be in the exact same spot as this one. And then you place power it with one of these redstone blocks, and it creates this instant wire. Now, this is the classic wire, and it's really useful for sending instant signals. Let's just build a couple of them. and then you can actually see that they're crossing chunk borders like this. This torch here makes it so that it's lag efficient, so that it doesn't drop down the power level. But if you were to place this this instant wire, like we have it over here, where the piston actually doesn't cross the chunk border, then the wire can break. I'll just mention it right now. You shouldn't build this wire in any other configuration than like this. It has to be like this. The piston has to cross the chunk border, or it will not work. There is 2 game ticks that this this exact configuration can break down for only for exactly 300 game ticks. So it's roughly 300 game ticks. Actually, much less. It's about 150 game ticks. So within 150 game ticks, if you send a signal right before the autosave, this wire will break down and it will self-repair. This wire, if the piston isn't on the chunk border, the wire breaks down and it doesn't self-repair, and you have a busted wire. And then you have to fly through the wire to repair them, and they self-repair. You don't need to correct the pistons, but it means that the signal doesn't go through anymore and it doesn't chunk load anymore. This system where the piston is on a chunk border works, and then you can just use this configuration in case you're actually building it incorrectly. Like you place this command block one chunk to let's say that you place it over here, then you obviously will not get the same effect. The piston is no longer on the chunk border, and you have a problem. So make sure that these command blocks are in the correct locations. And then, as we saw earlier, when you power one of these command blocks, it creates the chunk loading grid. Now, the center where I'm standing at, this is going to get chunk loaded if a 5x5 area that is going to be needed for the Perl to entity process. So wherever you teleport to, let's say that you teleported to this location where you were doing that teleporting thing that we just did earlier, just a couple of minutes ago, and this 5x5 loading is required wherever the Perl lands. You don't need to load the whole line. You just need to load those spots that the Perl takes when it's traveling. And then after you have built your entire system, the last location, you just place like a wall or something, and the Perl, let's say that I'm standing on the exact location where the Perl is, the Perl then hits the wall. You can't place this wall too far off. There is a limitations in the game that prevents it. So build this wall like right after the Perl. You can build it so that the Perl is going to teleport into the block. That's not going to work. Make sure that it's just the wall is after the Perl, and then you should place probably a platform, and then the player can actually land on it. That's how you pretty much build the whole system from top to bottom. There is probably going to be many questions, so you can spam the comment section for details. And if you have any detailed question, any other questions, in general questions, just ask. There is no shortage of questions, and there is plenty of helpful people. There is also a Discord where we actually do all this stuff of research. You can actually go to the Monkeys Discord. I will link it in the description. You can come over there, and there is other topics that we are looking into in Minecraft. On top of that, you can ask about questions about this cannon. Now, hopefully that was an informative explanation of how the cannon works, and there was other people actually worked on this project. Special thanks to ornariece and Kayleigh for helping us with the details. Kayleigh, for example, helped with the comparators, tried to actually get the comparator system to become instant. Obviously didn't work out. It was many problems. There is problems with instant comparators. ornariece also helped with the automated what is called building of those instant wires that we then later replaced with command blocks. But they also helped. There was other people that helped with smaller details as well. And generally, the whole cannon was a major project that has been ongoing for many months. It's not just the people that have been working on this particular cannon. The compressors, for example, have been the works of many other people that came before. But big thanks to all the people that helped out, and hope someone else actually builds one of these cannons. It would be actually cool if you build one, take a picture and send it to us. Bye.